Hey, welcome to Caught Up. Thanks for watching. I'm Brad, and this is my wife, Michelle. And if you like our channel, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to it because it helps us get the word out to as many people as possible. Why is that? Because we feel the Lord Jesus is coming back very soon for his church. Hey guys, last week we talked about prophecy and the importance of prophecy. And you know, 1/3 of the Bible was prophetic when written. 1/3, and 50%, half of those prophecies have been fulfilled already to 100% accuracy. Amazing. Bible prophecy is amazing, and it is so important for us to study and to know. So important that if you recall that story with Jesus and the disciples, when Jesus pointed out, they were walking by the temple and looked at this temple. It was a beautiful, magnificent building. And Jesus says, hey guys, there's going to be a day that none of these stones will be standing on top of each other. This temple will be destroyed. Well, later on, the disciples got with Jesus and they asked him, would you please tell us when is that going to happen? But not only that, would you tell us what are some of the signs of your return? When you give us the signs of the time, of the end of the time. Well, Jesus was very kind, of course, and prophecy being important to Jesus, and I'll answer those questions. But first, guys, I'm going to tell you something very important. I don't want you to be deceived, deception. And why is that? Because the Bible speaks that in the end days, before the return of Jesus for the church, which we call the rapture, and then into the tribulation, what will happen to this world will be deception, will be huge, very huge. And that's actually a sign that we're getting close. When you see deception, delusion, and don't we see that today, guys? When you see that, that's a sign that his return is just around the corner. So we thought that maybe we probably should give you a definition to deception, since that's what we want to talk about today. So deception is really just this. The Bible makes it very clear that, the definition of deception is the act of causing someone to accept as true or valid what is false or invalid. In our current event we want to discuss today on this video, it fits this description of deception to a T.
Yeah, we wanted to bring your attention and just share some background information first about a man who's really gaining prominence on the world scene. And his name is Yuval Noah Harari. Have you heard of him? He is a lecturer of the Department of History at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. In 2014, Harari authored a book called Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. Well, the book has become an international hit. More than 40 million copies in 65 languages have been sold. The book was recommended by Barack Obama, Bill Gates, and others. He is considered one of the world's most influential public intellectuals today by global elites. He regularly discusses global issues with heads of state. It's very interesting, though, that Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, and Mark Zuckerberg affectionately refer to him as the prophet. Now, as we go on and share more about him, I think you're going to agree with us that he is not someone that you would want to seek out future information from. I just hope that you will agree with us on that. You might wonder, though, why are we taking the time this week to talk about a mere man? And what does he have to do with deception in the end times?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a good question, and we want to talk about this guy for that reason. And what is this guy up to? And how come we're relating this Harari to deception? Yeah, Brad, there's a lot of people in the world today that are, they are deceived and they talk about these things, right? False stuff. True, very true. But this guy is on the world scene, as Michelle just said. He's well known. I mean, we didn't know him until we started doing some research, but he's well known if you do some research on this guy. It's just interesting, too. You know, his middle name is Noah, but we're not talking about the Noah of the Bible, this guy. Anyway, when you go to his website, if you do, we don't recommend that. If you go to his website, you're going to see this right on his website, in quotes, history began when humans invented gods and will end when humans become gods. That is on his website. quote to quote. Wow. Well, anyway, here's a few more of his remarks that have been extrapolated from his various conferences, forums, and interviews, all right? Just to get you a flavor of who this guy is. And these are all his quotes. We don't have to wait for Christ's second coming to overcome death. A lab can do it. I don't think life has any meaning. All God ever created was organic life. He never created inorganic life. We now go beyond the God of the Bible. Divinity is not going far enough to describe what we are doing. Strange, huh? Here's some more. We are creating humans into gods. Really? Also, we see a change in the nature of surveillance. Previously, surveillance was mainly above the skin. He goes on and says, now it's going under the skin. Governments want to know not just where we go or who we meet. Above all, they want to know what is happening under our skin. Mm. You know, we've talked about that. Michelle and I have looked at this. This is, this is not the mark of the beast, guys, but the technology is there, right, honey? Everything is there for technology. And we're in another video later on, we do want to bring more of this up about it's called smart cities and stuff like that, because we're finding this very interesting. This is where the world is going. This digital and the surveillance, all this, it's just amazing how closely and how quickly we're getting to the end times and return of Jesus. Well, anyway, now this is not me. This is him still quoting. God is dead. It's just taken a while to get rid of the body. All this about Jesus being the Son of God and rising from the dead, that's fake news, unquote. These are very blasphemous remarks. And they're very difficult even to read on for this video. Blasphemous remarks. So what does God have to say about this? God says a lot about this, in fact, in the Bible, but I just wanted to pick out a couple verses out of the book of Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 43, verses 10 to 13. We read this. Quote, this is God speaking. You are my witnesses. This is the Lord's declaration, and my servant whom I have chosen, so that you may know and believe me and understand that I am he. No God was formed before me, and there will be none after me. I am the Lord, and there is no other Savior but me. I alone declared, saved, and proclaimed, and not some foreign God among you. So, you are my witnesses. This is the Lord's declaration, and I am God. Also, from today on, I am he alone, and none can deliver from my hand. I act, and who can reverse it? Words that God spoke in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43. Amazing. You'll see that all through Scripture, of course, because God is sovereign, and he's on the throne, and he's in control of everything. Actually, this stuff about Harari, when he talks this way, if you read that in Psalms 2, he's on the throne, and he's laughing at this. He's going, these guys are nutcase. You know, I am God, and no one's going to be God. I alone am God. Well, anyway, just to bring this point, bring a little humor into this, I guess. This is a humorous story that we found, and I thought it's really apropos to what we're talking about. Let me read this. One day, a group of scientists got together and decided that humanity had become a long way and no longer needed God. So they picked one scientist to go and tell him that they were done with him. Like that. Hey, you go talk to God. The scientist walked up to God and said, God, we've decided that we no longer need you. We're to the point where we can clone people, manipulate atoms, build molecules, fly through space, and do so many other miraculous things. So why don't you just go away and mind your own business from now on? So God listened very patiently and kindly to the man. After the scientist was done talking, God said, very well. How about this? Before I go, let's say we have a human making contest. To which the scientist replied, okay, we can handle that. But, God added, we're going to do this just like I did back in the old days with Adam. The scientist nodded. Oh, yeah, sure, no problem. So the scientist, he bends down and picks up a handful of dirt. And God wags his finger at the scientist, says, put that down. You go find your own dirt. I love that. I mean, that just, it's a funny story, but it's really kind of true if you think about it. These people think they can be God, but no, they can't. Harari, listen, Mr. Harari, God is indeed not dead, and you or anyone else will never be God. Well, interesting. I find that interesting because in the Old Testament, back in the Garden of Eden, it's a story. I'm sure you're familiar with this. If not, go to Genesis, very first book of the Bible, and you'll see the story where God has a conversation with Eve and Adam and says, you can't eat from this tree of life. You can do anything else, but just don't eat from this tree of life. If you do, you'll know, you surely will die. Well, anyway, I don't know when it was, but Satan comes up to Eve and whispers and says, did God really say that? And so, of course, Eve responds, yeah, this is what he said. And Satan says, no, you will not die. In fact, God knows that when you eat it, your eyes will be open and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Did you hear those words? You'll be like God. So look, Satan says this. Satan says, you will not die, right? What does Harari say? Oh, you're not going to die. Why? Because a lab can overcome death. Satan says, you will be like God. Harari says, we are creating humans into gods. Do you see that? The very words that came spewed out of the mouth of Satan, the father of lies and deceit, are the same words that are spewing out of this man, Harari. Anyway, he's got not only the ears of the global elites, powerful people in government around the world, but he also has the ear of this guy named Klaus Schwab. Now, you know who this guy is, right? He's the president and the founder of the World Economic Forum. And what is their goal? Their goal is globalization, one world government. And here are some of this Schwab's, his quotes that he's known for saying. Quote, the pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and listen to this, reset our world. He's talking about the Great Reset, guys. That's what he's talking about. He goes on to say this, to achieve a better outcome, listen to these words now, the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and economies, from education to social contracts and working conditions. Okay, what do we have here? We have the head of the World Economic Forum, whose goal is to have a great reset of this world, right? And who's he listening to? Well, he's listening to a few people, but he's really listening to this guy that we're talking about, this Harari guy. And what does this Harari guy believe? Well, we just read you some of his statements. He says there's no God. God is dead. He says that humans can be created into gods and that life has no meaning. So the goals are really the same. Do whatever we can on our own. We don't need God, and we're going to do this jointly as a world, one world, called globalization. And that's what they're doing. And they want to be ruled, this world, it will be ruled by these, they want to rule these elites. That's what they're shooting for right now. But guess what? They believe that someday that they will actually obtain this goal. I mean, they're working so hard at this, guys. I mean, it's just out there in our face. They're not hiding this anymore. Well, you know what I think? I think this push that they're having, this push towards this globalization, it's not really new. It's been around for long, but it's really getting closer. Why? Because we're talking about signs of the end before Jesus returns, okay? This push towards globalization is being marked by a very powerful demonic influence of deception and delusion. See, Satan is the father of delusion, father of lies. He's a great deceiver. Revelation talks about him. He says he deceives the whole world. In Revelation 13, it says that this Satan will have complete control of the world, and that the man coming on the scene, the world leader, the Antichrist, is going to be his puppet.
You know, as you were talking, I was just thinking, you know, if we really want to know God's view on globalism, we just need to go back and read about the Tower of Babel, because God, you know, made it clear that man was not going to build their own empire and have their own one language. That just wasn't going to work. And he was, you know, very quick to act upon that and not allow that to happen. So we know this is definitely not God's desire for our world. Well, you hear the word Antichrist. It means someone who denies or opposes Christ. The Bible speaks pretty clearly about the Antichrist in a few passages. 1 John 4:3, it says, "And every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of Antichrist. You have heard that it is coming, and now it is already in the world." And in 1 John 2:18 says, "Children, it is the last hour. And just as you have heard that Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have appeared. From this we know that it is the last hour." Well, many Antichrists have definitely come and gone. If you think about it, Satan, the father of lies, was actually the first, but others have made their presence known on the world scene, like Antiochus Epiphanes, Nero, Hitler, and many other horrible world tyrants. And unfortunately, we have several of those on the world scene right now. There's no doubt, though, that Harari is displaying the spirit of Antichrist. Think about what he said. All this about Jesus rising from the dead, he says that's fake news. That statement, I tell you, is from the pit of hell. We encourage you to do your own research about Harari and Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, and the Great Reset. They are not secretive in any way. I think they're kind of proud of what they're doing, really, and they do want the word to get out as to what they are trying to accomplish. They think it's such a noble goal, but they make it clear that they hide their truths in plain sight. Well, we are seeing the spirit of Antichrist becoming more and more prevalent in our society. That's why you are seeing how things are so unhinged. I mean, we all feel it. I know we watch the news periodically, and when we do, we just look at each other in disbelief that it's getting crazier by the day. But we do believe the real Antichrist, who is spoken of in Revelation 13, will arrive under the complete control of Satan, and that's going to happen soon, we believe. The Bible tells us that as we get closer to the last days, deception will increase, and many will fall away from their faith. So that's one reason that Brad and I feel really burdened to just share what's on our heart about the Lord and about end times and Bible prophecy, because we want to help you, and even it helps us to stand firm in our faith in these very crazy and deceptive times that we're living in. Keep our eyes on Jesus. Stay in his word. That's the only way that we can stay alert and safeguard ourselves from deception. And we do know that, as Brad has shared a few times, that in Matthew 24, when Jesus is talking to his disciples, he is making it clear that in the end times, we need to guard against deception. He says, "Many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Messiah,' and they will deceive many." This man, Harari, is not saying that he's Messiah, and we're certainly not saying that, but he is saying that he can get things going in such a way that possibly we could become gods. And it's, he's continuing to sell millions of books, speak to heads of state, and as a sounding board for the head of the World Economic Forum, people are listening and they are buying into the lies that he is selling. And we just really would hope and pray that you would not do that, and maybe even share this video to help others be more aware of this person and to stay away from this sort of teaching.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that would be, we really hope you do that. You know, we are in some turbulent times right now. The world has been in turbulent times in the past. It's really been in turbulent times from the very beginning, if you think about it. But we're getting closer to the return of Christ, and he told us that we can watch for the signs of his return. And some of these signs that we're talking about here, things will become turbulent, very unsettling. And maybe you're feeling that way right now, unsettled about what's happening. There's been a lot of changes since in just the last, 2 or 3 years. We've seen a lot of changes quickly, happening quickly, just like that word in Revelation, when these things start to quickly happen, you know, that word tahos, right? We talked about that before. It's that word we get tachometer. It's going to speed up. And well, we're seeing things speed up right now. But, you know, what we try to do too is bring you some of these current events, but we try to bring you some encouraging words from the Word of God. And can I just read something from the book of Isaiah? In the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verses 28 and to 31. I'd like to read that, please. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men, they stumble and fall. But those who hope, those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. I love those verses. Probably one reason I love that verse is because they will soar like eagles. And as being a pilot, I kind of relate to that. I think it'd be great to be an eagle and soar. But anyway, you know, guys, we're all going to experience heartaches. We're all going to experience times when we're just feeling discouraged and weary, right? I mean, it's just going to happen. And what did God say in his word? He said, those who hope and put their trust and their hope in me, I will give them strength. That's where the key is, guys. It's not anything else. It's not in the world. It's not in materialistic things. It's in the living God. We put our hope in the living God, and he will give us that strength so we can soar like eagles. You don't even need a pilot's license for that. But anyway, Jesus said these words in John chapter 10, verses 9 and 10. He said, I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. A thief comes only to steal and to kill and to destroy. I have come so that they may have life and have it in abundance. Jesus also said, I am the way, the truth, the life. No one can come to the Father except through me. John 14:6. Compare those two. Satan, the father of lies, what does he do? Well, we've just read that. He comes to steal, kill, destroy. That's his mode of operandi. That's what he does. And he'll do that through deception, guys. He'll use deception as that's one of his tools, one of his huge tools that he'll use. Compare that with Jesus. What does Jesus do? Jesus says, I will come in and go out. I will help you find that pasture. I mean, think about that scenery. It's a beautiful scenery. He's the shepherd, the great shepherd, the beautiful shepherd, the wonderful shepherd. He's going to take care of us. He's going to meet our needs. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. That's just very encouraging words in this time, isn't it? Yeah. Well, this distinction, this contrast, I should say, between these two can't be clearer. Can it be? Have you given your life to Jesus? That's the question we're always going to ask. So important. Why? It's not too late. Giving your life to Jesus right now is not too late. Because if you're listening to us talk and you're watching this video, that means Jesus has not come back yet. That means the world has not entered what we call the 7-year tribulation. And that's not going to be a good time. Listen to the words, what Jesus says about that time called the tribulation. Quote from Jesus, "For at that time there will be great tribulation, the kind that hasn't taken place from the beginning of the world until now and never will again. Unless those days were limited, no one would survive." That's found in Matthew 24, verses 21 and 22. Guys, the tribulation, you don't want to be there when it begins, and you don't have to. Jesus has a rescue plan, and it won't cost you anything.
What is God's rescue plan? Well, it's actually known as the gospel, which is good news. He tells us in his word that all of us have sinned and all of us fall short of his glory. That's in Romans 3:23. But he's also very clear that it's not by any works of righteousness that we could do, but it's only through faith in Jesus Christ and his finished work on the cross, that if we place our trust, I like to say transfer my trust from myself and anything I think I could ever do and place it on Jesus Christ alone, then I can know for sure that I'm going to be in heaven. It's that simple. We complicate everything, but God is really simple in this message. And in 1 John 5:13, he also says, these things are written that you may know. He wants us to know. He doesn't want us to be in that, thinking, have I done enough good works? Do my good works outweigh my bad? Because if not, I might not make it. No. He wants us to know and have complete, absolute assurance. Time is so short. We believe that Jesus is coming back soon. That's why we're doing what we're doing. If you haven't made this most important life decision, we would just say, what is keeping you from doing that? Today is the day of salvation. None of us have the guarantee of tomorrow. So I would actually ask, if you make that decision, just somehow let us know in the comment. That would mean so much to us to know that. But as we're just wrapping this up and, talking about just end times, and we would just want to encourage you, like Brad said, we want to end on a positive note and just encouragement that as you hear all these terrible things, that you would remember in 1 John 4:4, greater is he who is in us as believers in Jesus Christ than he who is in the world, which is Satan. And I'm here to tell you that the spirit of Antichrist is alive and well, and it's going to be just stirring the pot. So it's so important that we know for sure where we're headed, and we know what our foundation is, even in very turbulent times. So I guess what we'd say until next time, keep your eyes on Jesus, stay in his word, and we'll see you soon, either here, there, or in the air.